if you have any questions during, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, it might flip through rather quickly. And I'm sharing everything personally with you guys, so if you want to share something as well, you can. If you want to relate to the material, or if you have a question with a personal example that you'd like to share as well. Maybe you've gone through similar things. You should be sorry. It's fine, I just started. You missed nothing. So, yeah, this is what I was working on this week in between working on all the other things. So, choosing love, happiness, and positive frequencies. I have my YouTube here, Adam Sweeney Metaphysics. This will be up there soon after. And this is my Instagram if you want to follow me posting pictures of my cats. So I started this journey about 4 years ago into self-development, self-improvement. There were situations that happened in my family and personal life that sort of burnt me out. And I was always into metaphysics, but I never really applied it. So I actually took some time to do research and pick things from here and there that actually worked for me, and coming across all the fears that I have, which I'm sure aren't any different from yours, which is why I'm standing up here doing public speaking. So it's not as scary as you might think. So if you're talking about something you like, something you're interested in, and just figuring out a way, like everyone else, just to be happy. What is happiness? What is this? What is this life all about? What can I get out of it? Because I know that it's more than it seems. So one thing I realize is that when we talk about happiness, it's good to have a clear definition of what you might think it is. And this is just my definition. And for me, it's basically, it's not only a choice, but it's a state of being. And it's a very natural state of being that we can choose. And when I say it's natural, I mean that from my perspective, I think it's the way that it should be. It's sort of easy when all these other things don't come up that prevent us. So I come at it from the perspective that it's the norm, or that it could be the norm at least. At least that's what I prefer, that it would be the norm. And when you think of it as a choice, then you can actually take responsibility for that. And despite all the circumstances that may happen in our lives, it is really the ultimate freedom we have, no matter what circumstance. Come on. Yeah, the seat just for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine. No matter what the circumstances are, I realize that we still have the freedom to choose how we prefer to feel, and that how we choose to feel is okay. Because I don't know, maybe growing up it wasn't always okay for me to choose how I want to feel if it wasn't perhaps what other people liked. And that's something that kind of stopped me from choosing what I preferred and had me choose something else. Sort of these beliefs that if I'm happy, if I choose that, it might bother somebody else, so I should restrict myself. And these are some of the ideas that we grow up with. However, it really is the ultimate freedom. We're free to choose at every moment, and everything stems from what we choose. Everything is a choice. So I'm going to go into sort of some metaphysical talk that focuses around the law of attraction. Are you guys familiar with that? Those terms? I'm sure you wouldn't be here if you weren't a little bit. Yeah? You? Okay. Well, we'll get into it, but it goes around these principles that the state of being that we choose creates our reality, and the beliefs and definitions we choose create our experience of reality. So, therefore, if you just look at that plainly, it's ultimate freedom to live our lives the way we want, the way we prefer to. So, and it's all a choice, and whether we choose to feel happy or sometimes we choose to feel sad or something else, that without judgment, the choices that we make are all valid. Otherwise, they wouldn't be options to choose from. So it's important to remove judgments, these things, good and bad, and switch them with things, this is what I prefer, this is what I don't prefer. Sort of like when you look at the news, it highlights a lot of negative things, but there are a lot of positive things out there too. And there will always be negative and positive out there, infinitely. So it just comes down to what do you prefer to look at, and everything else really doesn't matter because you're in charge of your experience and you're creating that. So how does our state of being create our reality? And yes, I think I will flip to yes, forgive me if it takes a moment. I did not want to waste paper. Okay. So, flashback to former presentation. So, in metaphysics, there are basically 5 laws that stretch throughout all of the universes, all of dimensions, and they're sort of laws with a capital L, that nothing gets around it. And what I do is I align my beliefs and definitions of everything that happens or that I experience. I align it with these laws, and they work for me. So, and the first one is that the universe is abundant and infinite, and it's actually made of the frequency of allowance, of unconditional love, because it allows you to make those choices of what you prefer to believe and your definitions, and to create your reality. It supports you unconditionally so much that you can create an experience of not being supported at all, but you would have to be supported in order to create that experience. And second, that everything is connected and everything makes up one thing, and we're just sort of different aspects of that one thing. So that everything is connected. There is no separation, really, despite if you can experience separation, although inadvertently it doesn't exist if everything is one thing. So, but if you want to believe that you're separate from everything, from everybody, and shut yourself out, you can do that and have an experience of separation. It's not fun. I've done that sometimes. It's not what I prefer. But ultimately, if you align with this definition that everything is connected, then it feels good. It feels alignment with who we are. So in 3, all things and realities are here and now in the present. Everything, past and future, exists all at once, but register at different frequencies. So basically, there's no such thing as time. It's sort of what we make up for ourselves, so we can manage our day, and there are dozens of time zones in the world, so that's easy for me to see. And when you look at these, you can think logically with your head if this makes sense, but think with your heart too, and if it feels right, if it feels in alignment with you. So that means that everything is here and now. However, you can't perceive everything all at once. Because if you could perceive multiple things, then it would take away from the sort of focused physical reality experience that we're having. So, and the fourth one, and the one we're going to talk about in more detail, which is the sum of the law of attraction, is your frequency or state of being corresponds exactly to the reality you experience. So your choices, your beliefs, your actions, these determine your state of being. And what you put out is what you get back. So what you put out through your actions, which are controlled by your beliefs and how you choose to live your life. And the fifth one is that change is a constant. Everything changes except these four. And these are basically the universal laws of existence. And they're there if you want to buy into them or not buy into them. If they work for you, then that's great. So this is sometimes difficult to imagine that everything could exist all at once, in one place, in one moment. But it's like looking at the moment, the same moment, from different perspectives. So if this camera were the moment, so this is one perspective of it, this is another, and this is another. So, but there are infinite realities that exist all at once. The structure of creation, it just is, it's a state. It's its own sort of still structure that always is and always was, but it registers a different frequency. And us being energetic beings, we put out a frequency and we shift ourselves to the appropriate frequency layered within the parallel realities. So, and these are layered throughout different densities and dimensions. But we're mostly focused on the fourth dimension, what we're in now. So you have 3 of space and 1 of time. And it extends from negative to positive. However, with a neutral balance point in the center. So you can say creation is slightly positive because it needs to have that neutral balance point to give you a space to choose from. And this is how you're supported unconditionally in your decisions from this neutral balance point. And so every choice, whether we prefer it or not, is a valid choice, as I said before. It may not be one you prefer. Choices you make or choices that others make, they can be great or horrible choices, but nevertheless, they're still valid as an option of choice throughout existence. So a little bit more about how this works with the parallel realities. So the state of being you choose to put out, it shifts your awareness through parallel versions of reality that resonate with that frequency. However, it moves so fast in what's called Planck time that it's like billions of realities per second that your consciousness is shifting through. And it's not that your body is shifting through parallel realities, because your body is a part of those realities. Every version of you, healthy version, sick version, these are different things that you're shifting through. You're peering out through the eyes almost. This is a perspective. Like when you're awake and then you go to sleep and your perspective goes somewhere else, and then you wake up and you come back. So it's like your consciousness is this. If you look at movies, it's like this light. It goes through the projector at 24 frames a second, but everything is a still frame. But when you're moving at the speed of light at Planck time, then it seems like a seamless experience that's happening. So, and if anyone was wondering how the law of attraction works, that's my viewpoint of it, because to me it makes a lot more sense, and it gives you the standpoint that you already have everything, access to infinitely everything. However, not everything is relevant to experience, and you'll experience not only what you put out, but you'll experience what is relevant that you need for your growth. So, and manifestation, people talk about manifesting their desires or what they want, and it's really just making something visible that is already there. Because if you have this viewpoint that it's not there and you need to attract it, then you're going to keep attracting it being not there, which is also a valid experience. So, we all give off, from my perspective, a natural, unique frequency, sort of a signature frequency that we all have that makes us a unique energy, like how everyone can have their own phone number. So, and then we can call each other. So, and this natural frequency is being pulled by a current, sort of guiding us to where we need to go, and we don't always know where that is. And you can call that destiny, if you will, if you want. However, there is still free will. There's always choice. You do not have to go down this energetic path that's specifically for you. But you can identify it when you're in that flow because it feels good. And the only reason why it would not feel good is if you resisted it or if you had definitions that it's not for you and that it's not supposed to feel good. And that's where we can often get caught up. So when we choose to resist this flow or the natural self, we can experience pain. However, it is always a free choice. The same with your beliefs and definitions we choose that may or may not be in alignment with who we are. So it's all a choice, and so I always keep in mind the definitions that I have because they contribute to my experiences, and the ones that I've grown up with, the ones we've grown up with, a lot of them aren't serving us anymore. I don't know the age range of everybody. Is there one more seat for this person? So I was born in the late 80s. So, yeah. And so we didn't have the internet until what, 1996? Around there? If some of us later? I don't know. However, the world was completely different. You can't notice a difference between too much. If you watch old TV shows between 1960 and 1970, there's not much difference. Technology is really slow. And when the internet came, we had this acceleration of things, and more things became possible. You know, you can live from your passion. You can be an Instagram. Anyone can really be famous, and they can earn money in several different ways from the internet, from apps. You don't have to play by the same rules, and we're often not meant to. However, if we've sort of grown up that way, then we think we have to. And then we just have a bunch of resistance because there are these opportunities we're not acting on because we're either afraid to or we doubt them, and we doubt ourselves and we think it's not possible. So, okay. What do you guys think happiness is? Anyone?
Is it something?
It's something.
Yeah.
It's just an interpretation. But what do you guys think happiness is? What's happiness to you? Can't just be me, guys.
It's freedom.
Freedom is one part of it for me.
Freedom. Okay. Very patriotic. Anyone else?
It's like harmony with inner state and environment.
Harmony with inner state and environment. Anyone else? What do you think it is, or what it maybe even what it feels like?
I think it's happiness is not pursuing happiness.
Pursuing happiness, or not needing to have to pursue that.
Needing to pursue happiness.
Yeah.
not chasing.
Chasing it. It's because this flow, this path that we have is our excitement, that I've found that it is our happiness if we don't resist it, and if we get used to identifying what it is and what it feels like. And if we think about maybe what's the point that we're of life, I will give you an answer to that, a answer. But so when I think what is happiness, I found it to be a combination of things. For me, it feels light, it feels like love, joy, excitement, passion, when there are new things you want to sink your teeth into. However, I've also realized that it also feels like growth and expanding and expressing and allowing. And in this way, it does feel like freedom. So, and being a whole person in all ways at the moment and expressing it in many different ways. So I don't just speak, but I write music and I play guitar. It's just another way that I express myself. And I also have a job at a software company. I express myself there too. I love animals. These are all different ways. We don't always have to stick to one. But discovering that is fun, discovering them and sharing them. So, and what I've found is when I've let go of resistance and allow myself to expand and try new things and to grow, it feels exciting, and I feel happy when that's happening. So, as I said before, I see it as our natural state, a state of happiness, just discovering yourself and going through these pathways from that perspective while choosing happiness. So, it can be the rule and not just the exception because of how everyone else says what's happening and all the reasons you can think of why not to choose it. So, another question I asked myself was, when does happiness take place? And I thought, when we're laughing, that's definitely when happiness takes place. When we're laughing, having fun, learning, playing, you might have to think back to when you're a child, when there were so many exciting things. Even, you go to the store and bring home a new video game to explore how exciting that was, or a new toy, a new piece of music. So, but it always happens in the present, when we're doing something with what we have in front of us. Does everyone agree with that? That you experience happiness in the present? Because where else could you? And if you remember times that you were happy, weren't you very present? And it's like nothing else even existed. And it didn't have to for that moment. And how? So I see happiness, as I said, a chosen state regardless of circumstances, and we can use sort of permission slips to choose it. Things, people that make us happy, but ultimately we're choosing it. But we can use these things, concerts, events, people, in order to choose it. But it's important to be aware that we're choosing it, and it is still a choice nonetheless. So I'm equating happiness with growth, with expanding. It's not just the state of being, but doing something with that state of being. So you get a reflection. So you're taking actions from that state of being. And so when you equate growth and expressing with happiness, it becomes a combination of things into one definition. And I found that this works for me, because I'm always growing. It's just a matter of what you're looking at in front of you and determining, could I grow from this or not? And so I found this to be the sort of higher reason for choosing a physical experience in a physical reality. Just to be who I am and expressing it in as many different ways as I can, as long as I'm enjoying it and that are fun for me. because we don't know who we're going to become. We only know who we are now. And I got caught up in making assumptions a lot in who I thought I was supposed to become, but really I don't know. But that's not going to stop me from exploring it in as many ways possible without insisting what needs to happen or become of that or what I should get from that. What I get is the growth and the becoming and just seeing who I am. So the good news is that assuming that this is true, that the purpose of this physical life is just to grow from our own perspectives in as many ways possible, the good news is that this growth is a self-supporting mechanism. And if you equate growth with happiness, then you can see it as a self-supporting mechanism to be happy in a way. So it flows to us the natural state of our natural selves. 3, it can be experienced as pure joy, excitement, happiness, referring to growth. And it's occurring at every moment, sort of just like being on a ride. It's always flowing. You wake up in the morning and you really don't know what's going to happen. You can assume what's going to happen, and these assumptions can limit you because you have this sort of framework in your mind, but you really don't know. And I've noticed that the mornings that I wake up where I just admit that I don't know what's going to happen today, and that's okay. Usually something happens I don't expect, and that something is usually opportunities to do something, to express myself, to meet with people, do activities, see things, explore things that I wouldn't have noticed. So I see it as sort of a ride that's sort of set up and knows where we need to go, and it's just a matter of allowing it to happen, with it still being our choice. So I'm going to talk about how it acts as a self-supporting mechanism now. So everything that happens in our life from this perspective isn't a mistake. Regardless of if we prefer what's happening or not, if we want to be there or not, it's there nonetheless. And if it's in front of you, then it can be used for growth for these reasons. Despite if it's not exactly what you want, or you have something you do want and you want to get there really fast just to have it, the thing to keep in mind is that growth, it doesn't set limits on itself, otherwise it would contradict its own point. So whatever is in front of you is there for growth. It wastes nothing and uses absolutely everything. Sort of like I was explaining to someone in your dreams use symbols. And if you ever looked into dream interpretation, everything that's in there is specific and exact for a reason. And it's the same with what's in your lives. It's okay if you don't prefer what's in front of you. So I've had many situations like that, home or work or anything else. It's okay if you don't prefer it, but the quicker way to get to a new place is to use it up. And things will linger and things will hang around, I've noticed, if you don't use them up. For example, at my job, I've been doing like data the past 6 years, and it's become really kind of boring for me, and there's not much opportunity to express myself. And before that was okay, and then at some point I realized that why am I there? And it was because I was growing from the people I was working with, specifically the people who were giving me a hard time. Not you. These are my coworkers. And this year I moved through that. I had challenges with my manager. I had challenges with a coworker. When people dump on you sometimes, and then you would believe it, And then as I was going through my beliefs and definitions that were brought up because of what was happening, I used what was in front of me to realize that these things aren't true. And I'm having a much deeper experience than you might see on the surface because of these reflections of what I believe to be true about myself. And as I explored those things and more importantly, took action from those states to sort of either push back, to speak up, to say something, take action, or take less action, realizing I might have been doing something to perhaps provoke it in ways I might have been not acting with the alignment that I prefer. So these are some things that I went through this year. And then was it a couple weeks ago, and my coworker, she started to acknowledge me again more and be nice to me and include me in conversations. And this was a couple weeks ago, and I noticed this. I thought, oh, I must be doing something right now. And I got through my definitions. As I said before, I realized that I wasn't experiencing that reality specifically for the work, but for the work environment and the people. That's where my growth was. And once I realized this and I used it up, the growth wasted no time. And last week, I applied for a fellowship in one of our other teams, in your team. Not sure. Did they tell you? Yeah. So I literally applied on Monday, but on Wednesday I got it. This fellowship to work in our video content team. So where I could do what I like to do, which is I have metaphysical courses that I've created, and I do videos and such. And this is partly how I've been supporting myself the past couple years through my passion in that area. And now I can apply that. At work. So I don't know how it's going to go. I won't make any assumptions, but I do know that if the circumstances change, then I must have used up all the growth. And it happens so fast, and next year I'm going to be in a new situation where there's new growth and excitement. More importantly, that's in alignment with myself. It doesn't mean there won't be challenges. If I'm there, that means that there is more growth for me. It doesn't mean that I'm going to bump heads like I used to. Growth can be expressive as well, and the way you express yourself, that is also growth. And yeah, so that's a tidbit from my personal life. I'll try to throw in as many as I can think of as I go through this, because people seem to find them very helpful. So it doesn't set limits on itself, and this is just a reason that you can validate what's in front of you. Whether it's a job you may not care for, or if you don't like being single, or any other situation you find yourself in, just know it's that way for a reason to be used up. And you just have to take a look why it is that way. And sometimes it can be a choice to do something totally different. And sometimes the choice just work with what you have. And that's a matter of discernment that you have to look within yourself to see. You know, I wasn't just going to quit my job because I hit some things. I knew there were possibilities there, and I work with that. But for some people, you may not be doing what you like to do at all, and you don't see a path there at all. And then the growth comes from the opportunity to choose something else. So you need a bit of discernment when you're working with things that are in front of you. So, and I keep emphasizing in front of you because that's the path forward. It uses everything that's in front of us now, and it always will take the path of least resistance. So if you're here and want to be here, sometimes it'll take you like this, and it'll actually be shorter than going this way. And there will be more growth here for you, because here there will be a lot of resistance. And you don't know who you're going to become. You don't know what you're being set up for. 5 years ago, I had a website called My English Lyrics. international songwriters like Antonio would write me and ask me to proofread their lyrics, and then I thought I would like to write articles on there about being a singer-songwriter. And then I switched, and then I started talking about how I write songs using metaphysics and connecting with myself. And then that turned into a course. And that website, it broke even, didn't make really a profit, but it's okay. That may not have been what it was for, you don't know. So I created a course for fun, and I put it on Udemy and Skillshare a couple years ago, and it's now been the best-selling course for the past 2 years on that site. And I'm very proud of it. I did it, and I put it up there with no insistence, and people gravitated toward it. And it supported me, so everyone who enrolled, it supported me financially, giving me more opportunities to act on other things. And this is how this mechanism works. And I didn't know why I was excited to do videos at all, but now with the fellowship that I applied for, it's quite obvious looking back what it was for. So you don't always know why you're called to do things. And even you don't know what you'll get out of it. Maybe you'll get no money out of it. It doesn't matter, because your growth wastes nothing. Every song you've written, Antonio, don't pick on you, made you who you, and Joanna, made you a version of you who you are now to write whatever the latest one you did. All that growth is cumulative, and you couldn't do what you're doing now if you hadn't have done what you did then. And not having stopped yourself then because of thoughts like, what am I going to get out of this? What are other people going to give me for this? So these are ways we limit ourselves. So it'll use all the people and circumstances you may prefer or not prefer. These could be people you like your friends, people you don't like. You grow from being with your friends too, otherwise you'd be bored with them. There's a reason why you're together reflecting off of each other. So it can go negatively and positively, either way it's for your growth. And it'll direct you to act or express yourself, to do what you need to do, what feels right to you, whether that's creatively or within your family or setting up a business. And as you're doing that, it'll also navigate you to beliefs and definitions that are out of alignment. So, an example was when I started making this presentation this week, even though I've done a bunch of these now. So, I had all my I had some notes, and I noticed that I was concerned of how this is going to look, how it's going to flow and lay out, and I just sort of felt like walking away. So, but I realized that I must have a belief or a definition of what I'm doing that's not in alignment. And then you look for insistences or assumptions that maybe it won't be good enough, or people won't get it. And then you see that it really doesn't, or I realize it really doesn't matter, and half the time it's just about just starting it. But I had this idea that I need to finish this presentation because I need to give it, and temporarily forgot that just making it, writing it, is a process within itself. And things come up during that process to reflect back to me, for me to look at. Because once I look at them and transform them, I can get to where I need to go easier. So it's not, what I've noticed, it's not about the finished product. It happened to me in another way this summer. I had my songs recorded, and I really wanted to put out an EP, so I could say, oh, I have an EP, and it's done, of my latest songs. And then I found these mixing and mastering courses online, and there were tons of videos, and it would take me time. So I stopped, and I went through those videos, and the process of going through those videos and adjusting my music was actually a lot of fun, and made it so much better quality than it is. So it's these things to keep in mind when we're working on projects or doing things, that maybe we're not just getting them done for the sake of getting them done. Because once we're finished with them, I'm finished a recording or writing a presentation, it doesn't serve me anymore. Once I created in my e-courses, they don't serve me anymore. I'm served during the process of that creation, of that expression. However, once it's done, it can serve someone else. So whoever uses it or watches it. So it'll use synchronicity and a natural and perfect timing to bring you the exact opportunities for growth you need exactly when you need them. It's automatic. There's no accidents. So when things happen in your life, you know that they're happening synchronistically. There are no accidents, so therefore you don't invalidate or dismiss anything that's happening to you. It supports you with all the abundance you need to have the experiences you need for your growth. Like I said, how my courses support me, as well as other things, my job, financially. However, abundance just does not just mean money. It means, my definition, if you want to clarify, it just means being able to do whatever you need to do for your growth when you need to do it. And as I'm doing that, nothing is stopping me from doing what I need to do. So, like the other week, I went out and I bought a really nice telescope. So I was really excited about it. It's pretty big, looks like a cannon. And yeah, I don't know why. But I will soon. I know it was $400. And actually, here's a better example. This is a sort of magical example you might hear, but it actually happened a few weeks ago. I needed a coffee table for my living room. It was important for me. It was something I needed. I hadn't been. My apartment was like half done. I sort of forgot about it, and then I noticed that in the reflections that I didn't quite feel at home. So I thought, okay, I need this coffee table. And I thought, well, I already spent what I budgeted for myself for the month, but I was like, I need this. So I got it anyway. It was like 250 euros. And then the next week, I got an email from PayPal saying they were returning, there was an error in their system. And something that I bought in January of 2017, back then I needed an automatic cat feeder with a little camera inside that I could see what I was doing. Yeah. And it said that they didn't accept my payment, or they didn't collect it or take it somehow. And this was supposed to happen, and when that happens, PayPal's supposed to return your money to you within 30 days. But there was an error, and it got returned to me like a year and 10 months later, exactly when I bought the coffee table, and it was 250 euros. Yeah. So that's not saying that happens all the time. That's the first time that happened to me. But it just goes to show it doesn't set limits on itself. Whatever you need, you will have. You have access to basically infinity, all these realities. And the people you're supposed to meet, nothing will stop you from meeting them if they're for your growth and the things you need to have, whether they're expensive guitars or not. If you need them, at a certain point you will have them.
You know what?
If this works, if it's for my growth, then yeah, I'm gonna buy it.
You make it this way, bro.
It depends on PayPal.
Yeah, we'll see if I get any more refunds. Yeah, so you can't really lose playing this game. It's set up to support you. So if you look at it from this aspect, the whole point is growth, and everything in front of you is for that, and you're supported in that, and the timing and the opportunities, and all you have to do is act and perceive those opportunities which you can best perceive from your natural state. because you cannot perceive what you're not the vibration of. It still exists, but you just don't perceive it. It's just not visible to you. So I have some practical steps for you guys. This is literally what I've been practicing for weeks and months now. So, how can we navigate through this physical reality game of growth and becoming more efficiently and have fun with it? So, the first point I made was to align your definitions with the five universal laws that you always exist. Everything's unconditional love and support. Everything's one thing. Everything is connected. What you put out is what you get back. Everything exists all at once. And to align the definitions that you don't prefer, and to actually look at them when they come up, even when they're uncomfortable, because the physical reality is just a reflection. Your experience is a reflection of those. And to know physical reality is a created experience on two levels, with your state of being and your definitions. Like I said, that is only a reflected mirror. All circumstances are valid, neutral, have no built-in meaning, and don't really matter in that sense. And you cannot like what you see, but that's okay. You can just say, it's not what I prefer. And the freedom comes from knowing you can always choose something else. You can always choose to look at it from a different perspective or another way. 3 months ago or so, I stopped watching politics because I noticed it had an effect, and I was only American politics, so it's a bit more dramatic at the moment. And there are a lot of people with belief systems that feel very powerless, and that they have no control, and so they get very emotional and angry. And I would watch this, and I just noticed it was just feeding my own beliefs of that weren't as severe as some other people's, but they were there nonetheless. This was brought to my attention. When I looked at them and transformed them, redefined them, now when I go to look at the news, it's kind of neutral to me. I don't feel like a pull anymore like I used to, and it's just like it's wasting my time now. So I have things to do, I have things I'm excited about. And if there's something relevant for me to do in that cause, I will know it. But from where I am in Munich, there's nothing really I can do but to lead my best life and to be an example. That you always have this freedom to choose. So step one, and there are basically only like 2 steps, is to become familiar with your natural energy. And you can use imagination, permission slips, and I'm not sure how this is for everyone else. I mean, I've been meditating for years, sort of on and off, but even despite that, this year, as I've transformed some beliefs and fears that kept me from acting, like in public or speaking, just anywhere, I can very well sense my natural energy coming through me, like I do right now. It's not sure if it's because I also used to do Reiki, if you guys know what Reiki energy healing is, but I can feel these sensations coming through, and my chest as well. And I know when there's no resistance in this natural state, it's flowing. But for everyone, it's different. But when you're happy, that's when I know that I'm in my natural state. So it's for everyone to sort of figure out, and maybe we can try just an exercise to see if we can do that. So I want everyone to close your eyes. Close your eyes, and don't look at your handbags. If you hear me rustling through them. That's good. All right, good. Laughing. That was my point. So close your eyes And uncross your arms if you're crossing them. You don't want to block anything. And think of, just feel yourself from the inside out a bit. And breathe. Take a deep breath. Breathe it in. Let it out. And think of something that's funny that you've seen or heard, or something that makes you smile, something that makes you feel good, and or it could be a memory as well. And as this sensation comes up, just notice what it feels like. Does everyone have something in mind? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I want you to, for a few seconds, stop thinking about it. Okay? And now think about it again for another moment. And now consciously think about it and then don't think about it, and go back and forth a little bit to get familiar with those different states, because those are different energy states that you're feeling, that you're allowing through, and you're using your memory or your mind as a permission slip in order to choose it, which is fine. Use whatever works for you. So now I want you to think about what makes you happy again. It's okay to smile. Maybe smile a bit. Yeah, okay. And I want you to think, all right, while you're in this state and noticing it, I want you to think of what you're going to do after this. What you could do after this. What are your options? What feels good to you? What's popping up in your mind that you could do that's maybe exciting or peaceful or interesting or driving you a bit? And there might be a couple of things coming up, but something might be on the forefront of your mind. It could be something you've been putting off as well that you would just like to do. There might be Christmas markets around here. It could be going for glue wine with me afterwards. Yeah. And notice, does everyone have something in mind? Everyone pick, out of those options that come to you, just pick something. You don't have to stick with it, but pick it. Choose it in your mind. Okay. You can open your eyes now. Come back to me. Yeah. Okay. Now, was that choice that you made in your mind, that you were perceiving while you were choosing the state you prefer, was that choice something you were perceiving before you did the exercise? Does anyone want to share? My point was, I could sometimes be in doing what I'm doing or in a neutral state, and I will perceive options in front of me that I want to do, but if I stop and I feel my energy and I allow myself to get into this state, other ideas pop into my head because I'm registering at a different state. Did that happen to anybody? No, it's okay. Couple yeses. You yes. Anyone else? Maybe you didn't think what you were going to do afterwards. Maybe you assumed you just go home, go to bed at 8:30. So this is something you can do, something you can take the time to do, because that state that you're choosing, you will perceive things in alignment with that state, and that's basically your path of least resistance, your path of the most exciting growth. You may not know why. It could be very simple. It could be call a friend, or go to sleep, or write something, do something, talk to somebody. So, as I said, you notice what was on the forefront of your mind. You'll always have options, but one should resonate with you a bit more than any other, and this is the one to act on. So the second step is to do or to act on this thing. And you can write out these options as well. It's not a to-do list. So if it's resonant, so do it if it's resonant with that natural state. So it must contain a level of excitement and growth. So in acting on it will ground that energy into physical reality, and you will get and feel a reinforcement of that energy that perpetuates you into that direction. And this is what I do at every moment, whether I'm at home or at work. I think, what are my options and what's the most resonant one? And I don't question the order of the way I do things, but I notice when I do them in that way, they flow a lot better. Because if you take action from that alignment, you will be led on a different path, but it's the path of your joy, of your excitement. And when I do this, it's like I know what to do. I'm never bored anymore. If I'm bored, then I must be resisting something in my mind. Because maybe there are a lot of people that meditate or say affirmations, but it's very important that you don't you choose the state you prefer, but to take action from that state, because you're in a physical reality, and so you need to, by taking action, you ground that energy, and then you can receive a reflection of that energy. It's like standing in front of a mirror. The mirror is not going to smile before you do. But when you get that reflection back, it reinforces the choices you already made and that state of being, and then you can easily perceive other things. So maybe try this. Everyone turn to someone. Look at someone. Here, yeah. All right. Look at someone in the eyes if you can, who's next to you. You don't have to, but for the purpose of the exercise, and smile at them. Yeah. You can look at me. So, smile at me. See? You're laughing, but what you're getting is a reflection. You're initiating smiles from a state of energy, and the other person is most likely mirroring you.
So it's easier and attractive.
I said smile, not talk. Ready for the explanation? Yeah. So as you probably noticed, when you smiled at somebody and the other person smiled back, you smiled bigger or laughed. This is a reflection. This is the reinforcement of what you put out. If the person didn't smile, that's okay. It's still their choice. That happened, If that happened, it happened for a reason, for your reason. For the point, most of you got smiles and laughs. This is the reinforcement you get when you do something from that state, because you don't smile and mean it if it's not from your natural state, from a positive state. So really, if you're at any moment where you're bored, you don't know where to do, or you have anxiety, or you're depressed, I've been through all those states, and this is what got me out of every one of them, was first choosing the state I prefer as best I can, because maybe I can't do it that well, as best I can, and then look at the options in front of me and act on the most resonant one. But by taking the action, that supported me in that reflection in order to keep going. So, and please don't make fun of my stick figures. I'm not really good at drawing, and I messed up a bit. But So look at these two. Yeah, so here's a representation of that I thought of this week. So, because things exist on all levels, from positive to negative, that can feel right to you, but they may not always feel in alignment. But you can be here at a neutral point, and you can choose the state you prefer. Like this guy is choosing his state, and so he perceives these blocks now. These stand out to him. If he was in this state, he would perceive these. So it's the same way when you have a bad day, how everything could sort of spiral downward, because you're grounding it with every action you're taking or every reaction. If someone yells at you and you yell back, that deepens your state of that negativity, and then that determines what else is in front of you, and you can slip or whatever, or run into the wrong person, whatever can happen. So he's perceiving these blocks. He takes action on it. So does this guy. He's not too happy with it though, and then either he builds something nice or he builds crap, or a situation representative of that. And then so this guy got the reflection after grounding that, and he perceived something even greater, so bigger blocks, and ones that maybe he could stack. And this guy got a different set of blocks. So it was like he was handed another, an even, I want to say worse situation, but one that he didn't prefer even more, because of how he solidified his reality with those actions. But at any moment, he can stop and choose a state he prefers, and then he'll perceive something else. So you'll notice when you take action on what's in front of you, and if you do it with no insistence, and in that state you prefer, you get all that, the growth that you need from that experience, because your natural state brings you into the present. And when you do that, you often get, I'll get inspirations of what to do next. It'll just sort of stand out. It'll be like a right in front of my face, and I'll know. And this sort of determines the natural ride or flow of my day. So I do this at home. I do it at work. When I have tasks at work, I write them all down, even if I don't like them. Which one do I feel like doing? And they'll go by a lot smoother, just because there's no resistance in there. So to emphasize the point, just choosing a state of being is not enough in a physical reality. Standing in front of the mirror doing affirmations is great. If you're creating a state, if your point is to create your natural state of being, using that as a permission slip or meditation, that's great. But do something with that state. Perceive something and take action from that state. It's very important if you go by this formula, because you will get reflections of that. You will begin to perceive other things, because as you're in flow with what you're doing in that state, it'll raise your vibration higher and higher, towards your natural frequency. So again, we must take physical action in a physical reality, because that's the game we're playing. And you need to do that in order to experience a difference or a shift or a change of the circumstances. So if you get yourself into a very nice state and then you don't do anything with it fades away pretty quickly, due to whatever beliefs or definitions you have that kept you from acting on things in the first place. So these states of being that you choose as you take action, they'll perpetuate themselves. So this is how they work. They perpetuate themselves with a range of positive or negative synchronicity, so it can work both ways, making it easier to choose that state or to stay in your preferred state. So you can then more easily perceive the next most resonant thing from that state, and be sure to stay in your preferred state so you can best extract the growth. Because if you decide, I know this is what I need to do, I need to make a presentation, but if I'm doing it just to get it done, then I'm not in my preferred state, I'm not in my natural state, and I'm not going to get what I need to get out of it. And then, even if that time has passed, the growth is still needed, and it'll use whatever's in front of you next, and you can recreate situations from different perspectives until you get the point. So, sorry, we're almost done here. So it sounds very easy, you know? Just choose the state you prefer and take action from it. So I know that's not easy. Like, I really do. It's not easy. So it's going to come up. What keeps us from choosing the state we prefer and choosing not to act on it? Why do we choose to stunt our growth and happiness? And so I'm going to share with you my biggest challenges that I've had, that I'm sure all of you had in some way, shape, or form. So the biggest challenge is to choosing the state I prefer and acting on it. So first one, what others might think, or being rejected for being a certain way or doing what I want to do. I was a very shy kid growing up. I was always afraid to get in trouble. I was always afraid of not having friends. So I choose to invalidate myself before anyone else could. Not consciously saying I'm going to do this, but it's just naturally when you're in fear, you don't do anything. You don't express yourself. And when you're a kid, that's okay, but when you're an adult, it affects you. And you need to look at it. Because your purpose as an adult becomes more prevalent, than when you're a kid just sort of playing video games. So that's one of the big challenges. Second one was procrastination. Anyone here experienced procrastination? Yeah. Okay. Procrastination, blaming circumstances. And when I say blaming circumstances, like I said, I work at a software company for the past 5 years, and I would have these ideas and things I want to do, and I always thought, if I didn't have this stupid job, I would have so much more time to do things. But then I noticed when I wasn't doing the job, and I had my free time, I still wasn't doing those things. So, because I just thought I needed more time. But if I was really excited about it, then I would take action no matter what. And I did in small steps, and now much bigger steps, because I've incorporated my job with everything else that I do and see it as a whole thing, a whole system. Nothing, I don't really consider myself having a career. My career is being me. And these are just different parts that I don't have hobbies. These are just things that I do and that I'm exploring. And they support me in more ways than one. So the third thing is pretty big, that something is missing. I can't be happy until I have this thing or this person or circumstances are the way that I prefer them to be. So I'm going to sit and wait. And being in a physical reality where everything's just a reflection, you're going to be waiting a long time. Yeah. So, I would just invalidate circumstances, something how I wasn't how I preferred it to be. I was sick last month, and I didn't want to cancel on everybody, and I didn't want to, stay all night up vomiting. So, but I very rarely get physical sick. Very rarely get viruses like that. So I knew if it's happening, it must be happening for a reason. I prefer, and that would affect everyone else as well, in a manner of speaking. Because now you're all here today. Maybe you couldn't have made it to the last one. Maybe it wasn't relevant to give the other presentation again. Maybe I needed to have that experience of creating a new one. Maybe I wasn't done learning what I need to learn before I presented it. There could be a whole bunch of reasons. But these were the biggest challenges that caused a lot of resistance, and basically from definitions of things and how I thought everything was supposed to be, which created a lot of insistence and assumptions as well, and they all went together. So I'm going to take you through these three things and what I've discovered, how I've sort of maneuvered them, changed definitions to have them work for me. So I always got very curious about why things were the way they were. So.
I'm sorry. It makes noise. It makes so much noise.
It's not that you made noise, it's just it's like you came from the carnival or something. It's okay. So, you know, but you were hungry and you wanted something to eat.
Yeah, I already chose what I wanted to do right now.
Yeah.
I was eating this.
And I'm glad you did that because it helps me make a point. Because, you know, another version of me some time ago might not have done that. Might have been too awkward or embarrassed to make noise or to disturb everybody. But if it's something that I really needed, then, you know, then it wouldn't matter. Because in reality, I can't affect anyone unless they choose to be affected in a way. So thank you for being a part of the synchronicity that helped make that point. The timing was absolutely perfect. And that's how things can work. So, yeah, so not choosing to act because of fear or rejection. And it's not just standing in front of you guys and talking about metaphysics and laws of energy. It can be anything, you know, being in the U-Bahn, the public transit, and just wanting to do something, you know, there's something on the floor, go reach for it. It could be as small as that, or to talk on the phone while other people are there if you need to make a call. It could be experienced in a number of different ways, including yourself within a conversation, you know, or if you're in school and being afraid to speak up or raise your hand out of concern maybe what other people might think of what you have to say. So, not to pick on you, but that's how I was. So, yeah, and it came from beliefs of not being good enough. And then I finally asked myself, not good enough for what? It doesn't make sense. For what? I don't know. And there was a belief if others respond a certain way, then perhaps there was something wrong with me. And that particular one sort of happened growing up. Whenever my mother didn't like the circumstances, or if I wasn't always hanging out with people, or maybe somebody didn't call me back, she would say, "What's wrong? This is wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be." And I got this idea in my head that if someone's upset with me or not responding to me in the way that I would like, that there must be something wrong. And then that definition just sort of ran rampant and just had me not to do anything. And it also goes with an assumptions of who I thought I was supposed to be. And like I said, I don't know. We all don't know, but maybe we grew up with these assumptions that we're supposed to be successful. But I guess that depends on your definition of success. If you look at it in terms of growth, then everyone can be very successful, be successful at every moment. So it depends how you want to look at it. And, you know, the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s sort of rat races people were in, where things were more structured, there was less flexibility. You know, if you don't have a typical office job for 40 years and then get a pension, you don't have to do that now. But, my dad has conversation with my sister because she's waiting tables, because she's still discovering herself what she wants to do. And he's like, you need this kind of job, this is safe, and it's old thinking. I mean, it's okay, that's how they grew up, that's how we sort of grew up when we were young and that we saw. And the challenge for us is growing up, for most of us, is growing up in two different eras basically, pre-internet and internet, when so many things are much more possible, but we're stuck with the beliefs of the old, and we need to transform them, not just with technology and opportunities, but perhaps parenting as well, how we teach our children, how we support them, and not instill these kinds of beliefs. But there's a great opportunity because we can be that defining generation that transforms and changes it for the future, for the rest to come. Because everyone else who comes next isn't going to have those experiences of growing up when times were a bit simpler. Doesn't mean they're complicated now, they're just more complex, but also more exciting. So what I come to realize as I was transforming this fear of rejection is that you're actually rejecting yourself when you don't choose the state you prefer, when you don't choose to act on what you need to do. It's self-rejection. And it's not actually people that you were afraid of, or it's someone telling you, no, you're no good, don't do this is terrible. It's actually, you're just afraid of the reflection of your own self-rejection, because that's all that is. That's all that could ever, that's the only way that could ever happen, of someone doing that and it affecting you, is if you already believe it and it's just reflecting that back. So I thought if I stay quiet, then I won't get that reflection of someone telling me I'm no good. But things happen anyway. You have relationships, you might get dumped sometimes and you feel like it's because you're no good, when in reality, maybe that it just doesn't serve you anymore. We can grow apart from people, and we do that when there's no growth left. And this was also very important for me, was my definition of relationships that had a huge effect. Because growing up, I thought relationships are you find someone to love you and to be with you so you're happy. And then you watch the Disney movies and you live happily ever after. But it's not true. It's not in alignment, I could say. You could still live happily ever after, but it won't be specifically for that one reason. So, but if you define relationships, all relationships, as you are attracted to someone because of the growth that brings you, that mirror that you reflect to each other all the time, and that's different. And when the growth is used up and decide to go separate ways, then that's fine too. But maybe not. Maybe if you're in a relationship, you can stay together and you can grow in your own way. So using each other, you don't know, and that's the point. But it's okay. There's a very high divorce rate, and I don't think we can always make those agreements, till death do us part. You could try. It could happen. But I think it's important to be okay if it doesn't. Because if there's no growth left, it doesn't serve you. You'll get bored, or you'll do things that are out of alignment. And that was something very, very life-changing for me when I changed that definition of relationships. Because then you also don't depend on them. They just become part of your growth and integrated with everything else. So that's what I'd like to share on that subject. That was very, very helpful. So, and just because others might have an experience from it that they don't prefer doesn't mean there is something wrong with me. I was at the lake a couple months ago, and this was the day I was choosing my natural state all day. I was doing like an exercise. I was determined to transform this fear of how I am, affects somebody else. And often we will get a reflection of those fears, but in order to transform them, to show that we're different people. And so I was sitting on the bench at the Fasanenwiese, and I was watching a video on my phone, and I was laughing. I forgot what I was watching, but I thought it was pretty funny. And then I hear out of nowhere, Gott. Angry angry German man. And he was sort of like, he was jogging. And I looked up and I saw him jogging away. I was like, did that really happen? I wasn't bothering anybody, I wasn't talking to anybody. But before, that still would have bothered me. And it came down to realizing that it's not true, that other people are just experiencing their own beliefs, and it has nothing to do with me. It still helps them because it can put them in touch with what doesn't feel good, what's out of alignment. I still wasn't sure, but 10 minutes later I got up and started to walk the path home, and then I saw him coming up again, and I was just like, is this guy for real? And then I was just walking, not smiling, but like, you know, and then I sort of looked up at him as we were passing, and he goes, and I was like, I knew it. I knew that was him. I knew he did that. But why? And then it made sense to me. And I noticed that I didn't react the way I did before because I wasn't buying into that belief anymore from the reflection, because it became clear to me, I don't know this person. It has nothing to do with me. And if you're stuck with people, like I stuck with one lady at work who who didn't really care for my existence. And I realized that she suffered from low self-esteem as well, and that she always needed attention. And I just became more aware and just sort of kept quiet, because sometimes she would say stuff and then I would say stupid things as well, just sort of be funny. And you know, I realized what was going on, and whenever she would get mad at me or say something, I noticed I'd still feel a little bit hurt. So I just kept looking at that, and I just kept looking and kept going back to this, and trying to and seeing things for what they actually are, as reflections, and that they had nothing to do with me, because we can't affect anybody else unless they agree to be effective. And this was something that was very important for me to clarify, is that we really can't affect anyone. However, this is important, however, you do something, because if I go kick your feet, you know, it's going to affect you in some way. But what you're doing is reflecting. So not affecting, but reflecting. And you know, there's some people that won't like you because you're reflecting maybe stuff they're not doing, or aspects of themselves that they don't like. You know, if sometimes I said stupid things in the office to get attention here and there, when they saw that or experienced that, it was like a mirror, and they would just get very angry. But instead of looking at themselves, it was projected towards me. And these are the kinds of people you'll attract yourself to for growth. You can have that. You can attract yourself to somebody who appreciates you for who you are, who accepts you for who you are. And maybe that's something that you're not entirely doing, but you can attract yourself to that situation so they can show you that. Show you what you can choose. And there are other people who will show you what you are choosing that you don't prefer. And this is how growth works. It doesn't waste any time, but you need to look at these circumstances in order to get the benefit, in order to see what it's navigating you towards. And it's just navigating you towards transformation, so you can experience more joy and act on things more freely. So, as I said, you have no idea who you're supposed to be, and no one really does. So all you can do is just choose to be who you prefer to be now. And it has nothing to do with who you've been. You know, maybe you've done something you regret. There's one that sticks in my mind about like 10, 12 years ago. I was lifeguarding at a lake, and I had some friends from Germany visiting, and one of my friends hooked up with the lifeguard, one of the lady lifeguards at the lake, and I had a terrible night that night. I was the designated driver. I was up really late. Those guys were wearing me out in general. And she came up to, and there's no one, we opened up, and I was at the picnic table, I had my head down. She came up to me and she was like, "Oh, I was really wild last night, huh?" And in all this mood, giddy mood, and I was just like, "What is she trying to do?" And I was not feeling good, and I said, "What was it?" I said, "It was pretty wild last night," and I said, "Pretty slutty." Just, if you know me, it's not something that I would say, but an 18-year-old version of me, it's not like him either, but he did say it. And that's still on my mind because sometimes I think about that because that's the only time I ever said someone, and it sort of hurt them because she started crying afterwards. And so of course I went up immediately and I apologized. But you can say that to a lot of people and it might not do anything. So if you look at it from different parameters, if she felt that were true about herself and she reacted, my actions navigated her to those feelings to see that wasn't true, because I was just in a mood. I knew that wasn't true. And I was thought if you kiss one dude, and I was thinking, why is she so upset? Like, it's obviously not true. But that was sort of her thing to work out. I apologized, did what I needed to do, and I can look back on that and say, I don't have to choose to feel guilty about that. I said something that wasn't in alignment with what I preferred, but I can choose that at every moment now. There was nothing really, quote unquote wrong with it. It was, it was valid. It's not what I preferred, and you can learn from that. But it did serve her. Whether she used it or not, it still did. So, yeah, okay. Second thing, procrastinating. Yeah, whether it's procrastinating to start a project or to record your songs. I'm picking on Antonio. Yeah. Okay, so sorry I get caught up in my stories. Choosing to procrastinate was one of the second biggest challenges, especially when I started wanting to do projects, like courses or the websites or stuff that I've written, songs, recording my stuff myself. So choosing to procrastinate, I noticed it was from beliefs. And when I actually asked myself, why don't I want to start this? Why, when I sit down at the table, I, turn and go towards the couch or go towards the fridge and walk around in a million different circles before I sit down to do something. So, and I had these beliefs that said, I can't do it. I don't know where to start. So why bother starting? This isn't going to be any good. So, which is something that came up while I was making this presentation. It's come up before, but really doesn't matter. So I'm getting information across. I don't have enough time, or this will not be exciting. And these beliefs create sort of overwhelm, and leads to procrastination and laziness. So maybe if you call yourself lazy, so my definition, what I think that really is it's just you're overwhelmed and then you just don't bother doing anything. To me, that's what laziness is. If you really look at the beliefs behind why you're not doing things. So, but if you look at why you're doing things, you ask yourself, why am I doing this? If you look at it from the perspective of growth, it's a lot different. Because there was an assumption, I'm doing this because I have to, or so I can get something out of it. But if you're doing whatever you plan to do, what's in front of you, if you're doing it for your growth, then you'll always get the growth from the process of doing it. So, and yeah, I said this before, so just to reiterate, when you're working on projects or things that are in front of you, it's not just to get them done. You're getting something from doing them, even if it's just an email. when I'm writing an email, I will make it sort of like into a little art project. How I can best word things, and I'll highlight things in bold or maybe different colors. And I notice people actually answer my emails when I do that, because it stands out from everything else that they get. So I had also an insistence on how things need to be or how it turns out. But really, you don't know, and I didn't know. I didn't know how this presentation would turn out. So on that, I would say to make the purpose about the growth, about the expression, and the things that come up for you while doing it, like I said before. So this presentation, how I have it ordered, it's an expression of myself, of my thoughts. And some of the beliefs that came up while I was doing it, I stopped the presentation and I looked at them, even for the rest of the night, even when I was running short on time. I stopped and I looked at it because I realized that was the point of me doing it. So it'll navigate you into the direction of your growth. And when you have completed something, like I said before, it no longer serves you because the process has been completed, although it can support you and serve others. When you have artists that write music that you really like, they go through a process when they write it, of that expression, the order of everything, the lyrics, the recording, the adding of instruments, and when it's done and they have a CD, the growth process for them is pretty much done at that point. And what you have is the CD. And other people can listen to that, and it can serve other people, and they can be inspired by that art, by the acting of someone else's passion. They can be inspired to do the same. But once it's done, it's done. So that lets you know that the process of doing it is the point. Process is the point. Yeah, it's about the journey, not the destination, from a bigger perspective. And so when I made it about growth, and got rid of this assumption and insistence while I'm doing it, then these reasons didn't come up. I would just start, and I could always correct something. Except for my stick figures, I couldn't fix them. Any other questions on procrastination, or if someone wants to share their experiences with procrastination, or if anyone relates to it in any way?
Yeah, sometimes I struggle to make the difference between something I'm not excited about and something I want to do but I procrastinate. And sometimes I try to do this thing where I follow my excitement, so what you're talking about, and then there's something that I seem to want to do, but I just don't do it because, and I don't know if it's procrastination or I just don't like doing it. For example, like I like doing videos for YouTube, but I hate editing them, and so I just don't do it. So it's like kind of a...
It sounds like you have a definition of editing that you don't prefer, because I've spent hours editing, trust me, and there's growth in that arrangement of things in a very particular way. So you just need to see it as a part of the process. Otherwise, if you rush through editing, it determines how everything turns out. Yeah. So I would take a look at,
what I think of it or what I believe.
yeah, because you're invalidating that part of the growth of this process of creating a video.
Yeah.
So yeah, take a look at that. Or if there are things you need to do, like we all need to do, like dishes, laundry, or maybe monotonous tasks at work, always ask yourself, how could I make this, if you know you have to do it, how can I make this more exciting? Could I put on music or something else, video on the background if it's not too distracting? So half the time I just put on music and ask yourself, how can I make this more exciting? If you have children and it's like an hour before their bedtime, how can I make that hour more exciting? I I know she has children, so that's, I don't know if anyone else does.
Actually, for 1 hour before bedtime, so I already get nervous. I will get nervous.
You'll get nervous.
Yeah.
Why?
Yes, actually, it's a lot of stress that you have to.
Prepare them for bed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you make that more exciting? Do you make it to a game for them, or?
But I slowly make it work. Like in the past, I have 2 children, so they went to bed around 10 o'clock, so 10 p.m. or 9:30. So it was very late. I have no time for myself. So I decided to change it. So slowly I always make it like 15 minutes
Bedtime and sundown.
earlier. Then now I make them in bed at 8. So they actually they get used to it. Then they know like 8 p.m. they should be in bed. So, but I still need to tell them and now it's already and dancing with Isaac. So you have half an hour.
Yeah. So you reduced it by a couple hours then, from 10 to 8, about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So slowly now they go to bed at 8.
Yeah, so that was your reality. The kids go to bed at 10, and you realize that you need that time for yourself
Yes.
to do things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you saw there were some options. You know, one of them was reduce the bedtime, and you took action, and you did that. But you said you did it gradually. So
Yes. Yes.
did you learn anything from that process of sort of weaning them?
I know if you don't push them, they will keep awake. But I just set a time. Sometimes you need a rule, and you say, okay, now 9:30 you have to be in bed. Either you awake or you sleep, it doesn't matter. You can read in bed, but you must be in bed.
Okay. So you set parameters, but you also said you learned that if you push them, then the less they listen.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I cannot put them too hard because then they will have bad dreams. So I have to find a nice way. Like I also tell them the truth. Like I tell them like I also work the whole day. I'm also tired. I also need time to sleep. The thing is, if you are not in bed, I cannot go to sleep. So I think just tell him the truth, so they will understand. Yeah, not completely, but if you tell them every day, they will start to accept it. So acceptance is the first thing. So yeah, then I'll read it.
That's great. Because she could have wanted her kids to instantly go to bed at 8 o'clock instead of 10. But she was taken through a process that taught her how to best communicate with her children that can be used for other things and maybe other people. You're not forcing them to do things, but explaining communication. And she would have never gotten that process of that growth and learning if she magically snapped her finger and her kids went to bed at 8. So this is the point I was making, not to invalidate those processes. And you can do that. If you do that from the state you prefer, then it can be an enjoyable experience of growth. So thank you very much. So yeah, last one and the big one. Why should I choose a positive state when I don't like my circumstances? So when thoughts will come up, I don't like my circumstances, this is not how things are supposed to be, supposed to go, it's not how I planned. How is choosing a positive state going to make any difference? I want things to change now so I can be happy. And Kathy sort of proved my point by giving the example. So, and what I had to say about that is that no matter what's happening, and And I said it to myself when I was sick a month ago, and I said it to myself on Monday or Tuesday night when I was exhausted, up all night with a headache. It's okay to be okay with what is now. Even if you acknowledge it's not what you prefer, but know that it must be there for a reason you do prefer. I'm in the middle of this, but I ordered a new backpack this week because mine's like falling apart, and it was nice. It's 50 euros, and it has this thing you can charge your phone on the outside. So I ordered that, and it was supposed to come Friday, and I was doing home office Friday, and then it didn't come Friday, and I looked, and it came Thursday, and Amazon said that it came, and then that I signed for it, and I did. So I don't know what happened. And so I just told myself, this is not what I prefer, but I know if it's happening for a reason that I do prefer, to navigate me towards something. And then I had thoughts pop up, what if someone was signed my name and sold my stuff, and then I feel like the victim. Even though it would be weird to have someone just on that day stand outside my door in the apartment and say they're me. Like, it doesn't matter, my mind went to the worst thing, because that's the belief I needed to be in touch with. And then I thought real quick, well, feeling like sort of slight victim feelings, however, that's still a choice. And why would I choose that? And I thought, well, I have other options, don't I, that I could act on? But it's easier to choose to feel like a sort of victim in this case. But I thought, I could call DHL. And I thought, well, then I have to speak German, and then I have to find the number, and then all these other numbers, and it's so much work, it's just easier just to be angry about it and say I'm a victim. Of theft, even though I don't know that. Someone could have hit the wrong button. And I really want my backpack because I'm going to the United States in a couple weeks. So I'm sorry I can't tell you how it's going to turn out, but I know it's happened for a reason I do prefer, because it put me in touch with something, and more often than not, it gets sorted out. I'll get that backpack. Even if it's totally lost and they don't refund my money, I can just buy another one, and I know I'll be supported because of my coffee table example. So that's something you can tell yourself when whether you're sick or it's things you don't prefer. If it's happening, it must be there for a reason I do prefer, and if you can extract a positive experience from that, if you take a look and realize, hey, I'm choosing to feel the way that I'm choosing right now. So let go of assumptions of how things are supposed to be, because you don't know. But what you can know is that they're for your growth. They're there to navigate you to where you want to be anyway, which is to feeling your natural state and happy and acting on it and enjoying your life. So if you don't choose to limit yourself, you can experience that growth and excitement when you act on those things. And you keep this in mind. And it's actually been working quite well for me, because instead of getting mad and reacting, I'm just looking at it. So I was emphasizing a lot, do what's in front of your face, because that's what you have to work with. So what is there in front of my face? And sometimes it'll be a belief being shown to me that I don't prefer, like I just said with the backpack, or while I was making this presentation. And I ask myself, am I invalidating what is there? Am I invalidating my circumstances? Instead of looking for a reason that they could be there, how they are serving me. What potential growth is there? Have I not used up? Because like I said, once you use up all the growth in a situation, then it has no choice but to change. So when there is no more, as I said, there's no more growth, circumstances must change. Is something really missing? or am I invalidating what is here? And the biggest example and realization that I had last weekend, because I struggled a lot with thinking that something's missing in order for me to choose being happy. And about 10 years ago, personal story, 10 years ago, I fell in love with this girl at university. And it was like the first time that's ever happened. And yeah, I was 22 years old, and didn't really know what was going on. She had kind of a boyfriend at the time. The relationship, though, was sort of dry. I can tell that it sort of expired, but she wasn't doing anything about it. And looking back, that's the reason I came into her life, to pull her out of that, I guess. I didn't know at the time. We're friends now. She has a couple kids, and she wouldn't be where she is now, happy with her kids, if I didn't come in there somewhere. Even though it didn't work out, I never really got to have a relationship with her, because over the summer, I told her she really needs to make a decision. And then when the summer was over, she didn't. And we just kept hanging out, and then the feelings became more, and then she just sort of got confused and angry, and she just didn't want to see me. And that broke my heart. And that was really challenging and very painful, because I experienced this happiness that I never felt before, which was actually my own energy, my own choosing a state that I preferred, using her as a permission slip to do that. So I thought, if she's not there, no permission slip, can't choose it. And then during these 3 months, it was actually a very special time. First of all, I went for a walk when I was feeling troubled that one day, and I found this cat. His name is Gizmo, and I found him. He's a very small baby, and I brought him home and cleaned him up, and I took care of him, and I still have him now. Brought him with me to Germany, and I went out to Reiki share, and I met this gentleman that I knew I needed to speak with. I didn't know why, and I spoke with him, and he told me about this meetup group called the Spiritual Embodiment Collective. And so I went to this meetup at someone's house, and I met all these fascinating people with healing abilities, channeling abilities, and just into like metaphysics. And they introduced me to a teacher that I follow called Bashar as well. And so while I was looking at everything this week, and I kept having thoughts going back there, and being with those people was like having a family for the first time, because my parents didn't understand any of this, and they were also kind of judgmental because they weren't actually too happy together. It's nothing really bad, but it wasn't an open environment to choose your natural state all the time. So I felt these people were like my family, and I experienced so many new and exciting things. But the whole time I was using them to get information or to understand the law of attraction in order to be with this person, and sort of invalidating what was there. I mean, I enjoyed it on some level, but not as much as I could have. And looking back on that, I realized that that's what I needed. That was what I needed for my growth. Because there are realities where I did experience this relationship, there are realities that I didn't. I experienced the ones that were most prevalent for my growth. And looking back, that feels very right to me, because I can see, I still have relationships with some of those people. I had this sort of family experience. I was introduced to a teacher. I had this cat that I now have, for a good part of my life. And it has everything to do with everything I have become that I'm doing now. And then I imagine, what if I did have a relationship with her? I wouldn't have experienced all that. I might have had some some fun times with her doing some things, and that would have been great. But if I'm honest, I'm sure not too far. We got in some fight, and she'd probably threaten to break up, and I would be like, oh no, and then don't do that. You're my permission slip. But looking back, I got so much growth from that experience. Everything was so new, and those people and the teachings and what I've learned, it's so much more than I could have ever gotten from that experience. However, she still had a part to play in leading me to that and starting me on this search. So it served both of us. So now I think when I'm experiencing a situation, that if nothing was missing back then, when it seemed like something was missing the most, then nothing can be missing now. And that's just my personal example to sort of prove to myself that this works for me, that it's in alignment. And it's up to you to look at your own lives and come to your own realizations that work for you. But that was a big one for me, and that happened just this week. So now I'm looking at everything that really nothing, because when you have a sense that nothing is missing, that you really feel at home with yourself. You really feel you have everything that you need. And so now I have those memories and those thoughts and concepts that I'm working with. I may not be 100% there, but I'm a lot more than I was before, and I'm going to keep going and look at everything that works up, that comes up, and yeah, it'll probably end up being in another presentation. I don't know. I'll continue doing this as long as I feel it's for my growth that I need to. So if I revert back to my presentation, see if I can circle this up. So choose the state you prefer and act from that state. So it's very important. The state you choose will resonate with certain things and draw your attention to what you have been choosing by reflections and your experiences. So please look at them in order to give you an opportunity to be sure you're choosing the state you prefer. It's also a self-correcting mechanism, this reflection. It just reflects back to you what you're choosing and shows you. And it says, in a way, is this what you prefer? This is what you've been choosing. If not, choose something else. If you feel like you can't help choosing what you're choosing, look at why you're choosing. And to go actually in depth and to ask yourself these questions. So choose the state you prefer, act on what is in front of you in that state that resonates, let go of insistences and assumptions and definitions that impede the joyful experience of your growth and the becoming of your full person in as many ways as possible. Because that's what this is all about, and it can really be a fun ride. It's what I'm discovering more and more. Any questions? Because this is about it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I heard a question because you said that it served both of you, this experience, like you were heartbroken. You said that it served for both of you, so I guess you were still in contact with her or something? Or
yeah,
you're saying that like the fact that she had a complication?
I'm still in contact with her. I'm in contact with all the people I've had relationships with that want to be in contact with me. Because there was a time when I wasn't, but then I was sort of invalidating that, and it didn't feel very good. So I did have to explore reasons to forgive myself and other people. But yeah, I saw her this year. She has 2 kids. She lives in Sweden. It's where she's from. But she went to school in the States. And yeah, we write now and then. So I know how the growth served me. I don't know how it served her, but I know it did in whatever way. But yeah, it's nice because we're always connected, and we'll always be connected with each other, just like we're all connected, all one thing. Yeah. Is that all you want to know about that situation?
Sure. We're not expecting any answers.
That's good. No insistence. Any other questions about this or my personal stories? Or if someone also wants to share something, now would also be the time as well. Is there anything here that you found particularly helpful or useful to you? Was there any concepts that you've heard of before but maybe have more clarity now? Did you not? Is this what you did not prefer? Did I solidify the understanding that this will not work for you and now you have other options? Yes, listen.
Yeah, for me, I just thank you. I like the program a lot. And in the last time, I also experienced kind of this realization, or it's just a big confirmation of what I was thinking about and how I was, living my life. It's really
Great.
cool. And I also had like an experience like that last year.
Nice. Well, I'm glad I could reflect that back to you or give any sort of confirmation. This is just one way to go about things. It's what works for me. And I'm glad there are so many people that I know and don't know that come here that are also interested. Because before I thought maybe no one else was. But, here we are.
It's really cool. For me.
Anyone else want to say something before I give my wrap-up speech?
Some questions?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
So, I was interested in the topic when you say that choose like what to do based on your feeling, but that's sometimes what I find for challenging when I have a rational mind and for some actions that it evaluates like this is right, this is bad, or this is good, and then it's really difficult to find out what I really want, or is it a good option for me? So did you have this kind of experiences, or
Yeah, but I noticed if I took a moment to choose the state I preferred, it would be a lot clearer. And with whatever state I was, if I listed out the options that I could act on and picked the one that was, and picked the one that was most pulling me, the most resonant, act on that, then everything will be fine. And even if that's not the thing, it'll turn you, the feeling will turn you around and direct you to something else. It's kind of like when you decide between two choices and you're like, and someone says, well, let's go with A. And you're like, I kind of don't want to go with A, I want to go with B. But I didn't know that until you said A. Kind of like that. That's how it can happen as well. But you get used to acting more discernment, just feeling out what feels resonant. And if thoughts come up on, I don't have time for this or whatnot, then that's part of the process to look at those thoughts.
Thank you. And the other question I have about if you have an experience to find out hidden fears, which is not directly fears that you can realize that this is a fear, but it's some other thoughts that you will never think that there is a fear behind it. And you have this kind of behavior actually because of fear there. I can bring one example because it's what I found out about shyness.
Shyness, yeah.
Yeah, and I never thought before that it's just a fear behind it. For example, there is another explanation, so you don't want to be in center of attention or whatever else, but it's your natural way. But I never thought that there is a fear behind it. And maybe there are some other cases to discover fears to see.
If only my parents, when I was younger, they're like, oh, he's just shy. They didn't realize, this kid's terrified of something.
Yeah. But because many people, they don't think about it as a fear, that there is
No, well, you just ask yourself, why don't I do this? Why do I feel shy? And then you say, I'm scared of this or that. And then you keep asking questions. What would I have to believe to be true about myself in order to feel this fear? But you're right, you examine it, break it down. It's less scary. There's really, doing all these things, I found there's nothing I've ever encountered that I needed to be afraid of. The most I was afraid of was experiencing a reflection of my own fear. And any other fear I felt was a self-imposed limitation where I thought I didn't have options, but I just didn't act on them. Does that answer your question, or was it just sharing?
I would say watch his videos on YouTube. There are some specifically that answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a video course on YouTube called How to Transform Transform Core Beliefs. Yeah, anyone's welcome to look at that. It's for free on YouTube. That's what he's referring to anyway.
Thank you.
It's a couple of years old, but it's still useful.